So, I mean, you're always in constant fear. I kind of understand, why people behave like they behave, and why. And again, it goes back to the education thing. You were obviously raised in a very educated family. Your parents strongly cared about your education, um, and how you saw the world.
Yeah.
And you can put on a happy face, because that is very, very important,
Yeah.
because there are times where you have to, just keep your mouth shut, even though you're just like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, this is so ridiculous. And this is honestly why I had to get out of the military, because there
Yeah.
was no change in the military. Like, these are our rules, and we don't stray from this. And I'm like, I can't do this because I can't grow. Like, you're locking me into
Yeah.
something that doesn't make any sense. Like, you are just wasting stuff. Like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. So, moved on to a different kind of life.
Yeah.
But
Smart.
so, yeah. But yeah, that is fascinating.
It's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
So
Yeah.
okay. Now, I know a lot of things that the red side says is that these inner city problems are happening because they keep voting Democrat. Like, they have Democratic governors, Democratic mayors, and they're not helping the community. They're not trying to educate them. They're just trying to give them free handouts, which is actually hurting them. Like, if you go to, I hate to use this reference because I don't want it to be derogatory at
Yes.
all, but
No.
you go to a petting zoo, or you go to somewhere and there's birds flying or something that says do not feed the animals, because then they become dependent on something, and that's a concern. It's like, are we actually helping these people, or are we actually crippling them?
Well, I mean, the reality is, when you break down the stats, well, first I'm going to back it up with the red news, like your Fox and any news for that matter, CNN.
Mm-hmm.
In 1994, maybe 95, somewhere in there, Bush, I feel like it's Bush Jr., but it might have been Bush Sr. I think it was Bush. They changed the FCC rules so that when you report, now it was Bush Jr. and it was later, in probably like early 2000s. He changed the FCC rules so when you report the news, you don't have to say both sides, So you don't have to say both sides of the story. You only have to say one side. And Fox is actually labeled not as a news organization, but as an entertainment organization. So that's why you can't sue them for libel or sue them for saying misinformation, because they're considered entertainment. So they can say whatever they want. So a lot of things they say just isn't true. So there's that. And you kind of really have to read between the lines to figure out what the truth is. And sometimes it gets very tricky to figure out who's telling the truth and who's not. I tend to lean toward the side of people who say both sides. If they say both sides, that makes them not look as good, then I'm like, okay, well, I'll listen to you, because at least you're saying both sides. If you're only saying one side, then it's all bets are off. Then you're just saying whatever the fuck you want.
You're biased.
Yeah, you're
biased.
Obviously
biased. Mm-hmm.
So I will say that. But statistically, Black Americans only make up 14% of the population. So therefore, we don't consume as much of the welfare as most populations do. And in fact, Reagan is the one, and a lot of Republicans are the one who put the welfare system in place, because they knew that it would cripple the Black community, because they knew they weren't going to give them jobs. So they were like, okay, we don't have to hire them because they can just go on welfare, right? If we break apart their families and make sure we send their husbands to jail, well, how are they going to take care of themselves? Well, we'll give them welfare, because the prison systems are loaded with Black and brown people. It's loaded. Yes. It's filled with Black and brown people.
It's a money-making system.
Right, exactly, because it's privatized. So if you have a bunch of women at home who aren't able necessarily to work because they have to take care of the kids, how are they going to not be a complete burden on society, like complete all-out burden on society? Well, you got to put a system in place to give them just a little bit of money, a little bit of egg, cheese, and butter, and then they'll be okay. At least they won't pull their hair out and catch the city on fire, right? But eventually people get tired of that because they're still not working and they want to work. And that doesn't satisfy people. So and as far as education goes, no one's really getting educated. No one's really getting educated. I realized I went to the school that I went through in Hearn was all white teachers, mostly, it was a split white and black. We weren't educated. That's a terrible school. It was equally as terrible, probably any urban school that there are. I mean, granted, I would say that the white schools, like my husband grew up in Orange County, it was a very beautiful school that he went to. He's the only black kid there. So you can imagine it was really rough. They called him a lot of names. And, but again, you had a lot of teachers there. Those teachers aren't very smart. Teachers are terrible. They're terrible. So I just don't think anybody's truly being educated. It's all perception. Perception creates our reality. I think everybody's being lied to. I think black people are being lied to. I think white people are being lied to. They're being lied about their placement in history and being lied about the inherent things that black people are doing versus what they're doing. I think we're all pretty much the same at the end of the day.
Okay.
But I do think there's a lot of lying happening where in terms of this person is smarter than the other. It's all about creating a narrative.
Yeah. I like how you brought up the whole destroying the black family thing, because when I talk about education, that's what I talk about.
Yeah.
Because like you said, your dad at 8:00, no matter what, you sat down and you had a Bible lesson or whatever. This is education. This is how you live your life. This is the rules and guidelines that you have, that you do not get to make your own choices. Like you are responsible to a higher power. So there's a code that you live by. So this is what I'm talking about, educated. Because
I see
you remove, the situation. Again, welfare destroys, the community. So you're saying that it's Republicans did it, but the Republicans say the Democrats did it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think anybody's great here. But I definitely will vote a Democrat before a Republican, because I do believe the Republicans are lying about what they think about black people. It's very much what Martin Luther King said about, having like a liberal white can be more dangerous. A liberal white can be more dangerous because they pretend to be your friend and you're like, okay, great, but they're really not helping you, as opposed to somebody who's outright hates you. You're like, okay, well, at least I know where you stand. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate that. At least I know where we're at in this situation. Exactly. I can hear myself. But I don't think every Democrat is that minded. I just think I understand government. That I do know. Out of my few years of thinking that my mother was right, that I was going to be a lawyer.
Oh yeah, that's a nasty system. It's a nasty system.
Oh, it's nasty. You're so right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I like to think that I know government, but only because when I call something, usually it ends up happening. Like I feel like I know what patterns happen before what other patterns happen.
That's prophecy.
Well, no, I mean the way I look at it is like it's a game, and there are certain rules. The goal is usually always the same. So if you know, if you figure that out, then you kind of see like which moves are being made towards the goal. But
yeah, true.
It also kind of bothers me because most of what I know or how I even learned about government came from punk music. So like if it's just it's
that's
fun.
Awesome.
okay.
Yeah.
So okay. Could I say?
You're not.
Are we?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay, cool. Can we do like 3 or 4 points of this? Like pick some key things that we think were like.
Man, are you kidding me? Like we're just getting into good stuff right now.
I
like
know.
This is where it's getting in depth.
I just know that people won't listen to like hours and hours and hours of like a podcast.
Well, I know, but then we just got to split it up and you release it. You like break it up into chunks.
Because it is an
like,
interesting conversation.
Then we don't have to meet up, and try to like get back going on where we're at. You have like a bunch of time, be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna release 20 minutes of it right now, and then I'll release 20 minutes of it 3 days from now, or whenever you get time to editing it or whatever.
So what is
like bonus episode?
It'd be different if it wasn't moving, but the conversation feels like it's moving. Like everybody has a very interesting thought and a very interesting perspective. Like I feel like all of you guys have such interesting commentary and very specific questions. That was very helpful. And it just seems like it naturally goes. So I don't know. I feel like if you have the starting point, which is, sort of the setup question that Will had.
Yeah.
If you start with that setup question, then the conversation will naturally roll from there, because his setup question was fantastic. And that I was writing notes as I was going.
You're so smart. I meant to. I
Yeah,
have my notepad.
no, it's all good. It's all good. I just naturally do that because that's what writers do. That's how we process things, is just writing things down. But then it just kind of naturally went into education, and it naturally went into the prison system. It just sort of naturally went into sort of what your original conceit.
Yeah.
I felt, I was really thinking about what your original conceit was. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm cool with it. I was just like, I don't know how to do this. Like, this is so new to all of us. Like,
I think
Billy was.
What do you mean? You guys are doing great. What are you talking about? You have
Okay,
such
well,
good
we've dropped
questions.
one episode, but the whole thing happened because we would sit in the garage talking like this.
Oh, well,
We
there
were
you
like,
go. So you're
dude,
already doing it.
what if we found people to talk with us like this and like spread the love and the like good conversation and just fucking like be cool?
Or try to get to something that nobody else wants to talk about, because you can actually have an in-depth conversation and be like, oh, you know what? I've never thought about this, because I'm not a black person. So no matter how much I sit here and try to tell you I understand, I can never possibly understand.
Right.
Yes.
Like just listening to her talk about this fear when she saw this 12, that that's her son. And I'm like, holy shit. Like I could never think like that.
Was he 12?
Like never, ever think like that.
Yeah, he was 12. It was so
okay.
hard. And I knew I couldn't watch it when it happened. Everybody kept talking about it. I was like, I can't watch that. I can't watch that. It was literally like years later. I couldn't even watch the George Floyd. I
didn't
can't
watch George Floyd.
I can't watch it. I can't watch that. 9 minutes? Oh my God. That's a long time to have your knee on somebody's neck and everybody's watching him suffocate out. Holy shit. I can't watch that.
I can't watch somebody
It was
beg for their
public execution.
Yeah.
It was public execution for a $20 bill, man.
I don't know what goes through people's heads. I mean, I did watch this documentary on this law enforcement training officer who, that's what he does. He goes around training cops, and his whole thing is like, basically, you got to get your first kill out of the way, murder somebody, and that makes you a cop. I'm like, what is happening here?
Wow.
These are civilians, okay?
What
so
was that?
you're talking like, I think a lot of stuff too, like you're getting people coming out of military going into the police department, and like you see like this kind of stuff is glamorized in movies and stuff.
Oh,
You see
yeah.
like Bad Boys.
Yes.
And then you see
Yes.
what are them,
Video games.
other like, oh man, yeah,
Oh,
it's
dude,
like
did you
cool
see?
to
Did
be
you
a
see Full
badass.
Metal Jacket?
Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Oh
Dude,
my
the
gosh.
helicopter scene.
Oh, where he was just, you just don't lead them as much. Just like
Yeah, man.
slaughtering innocent
Man,
people.
like
and it's
you see him just going
whoa.
off with the gun. Then you see what he's shooting at the whole time. You're like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like people who go into these situations, I feel like anytime you go into public service, you really have to care about people. Like you really have to care about the greater good. And if you don't care, it's really hard to do your job well. Like it's really
But see,
hard.
then this is going to take me back to the Bible, right? And like,
yeah, absolutely.
there are no good earthly kingdoms. There's no such thing.
You're right about that. Ooh,
And
that's the
like,
truth.
that's exactly what we have to see when we're looking at the government. Like, I am not pro-Republican and I am not pro-Democrat, because I've always considered one's a copperhead and one's a rattlesnake. Both of them are going to kill me if they bite me. So like, why? Just like, I'm just kind of sit back, that old Michael Jackson meme that he's sitting there eating the popcorn, the Thriller or whatever. It's like, I'm just here for the comments. It's like, I'm just watching the show, because God already told me that all this stuff is going to unravel and it's going to get crazy. So I'm like, all right, let's kind of see what's going on. And people are losing their minds.
It's
like
interesting.
Rationality is going out the window with people. They can't think anymore. It's crazy. It's like they're controlled. Like when God, it says he hardened Pharaoh's heart. It's like, and he talked about, did he lock them into this way of thinking? And now it's just,
I mean, you're right. And I'm grateful. Oddly enough, I'm
Billy, I
slightly
love the way you
nervous,
talk.
but I'm also grateful because it made me go back in history. And I was like, oh my God, how did it feel like when people were going through World War II?
Yeah.
Like, how did they feel like when they were going through Vietnam? How did people feel like when, civil rights when the 60s, when people were being lynched by the thousands. They said thousands of people were lynched during the 60s. Black people were lynched during the 60s. How did it feel like when people are running from slavery? You know, how did that feel like? And I thought, oh, this is our chapter. This is our own thing. This is our generation's thing. I don't know how much time we have. I know the clock is running down. I do believe end times. I do believe this, like what you said, earthly, there are no such thing. But I also think that there are things that God has called men to do to be a blessing and to cause the reprieve and cause the time of peace. Because you can even go back biblically, look at David. They were warring, all because they didn't listen the first time around when he said, get rid of them all. They didn't listen. So then he brings David. David kills everybody. He kills everybody. But he's not allowed to build the temple. You guys already know this. He's not allowed to build the temple. Why? He has too much blood on his hands. But he brought peace to the kingdom. He brought peace for years. So I'm like, okay, well, who's going to bring about the peace? Who's going to do that? Who's going to do the greater good? You know, you had Winston Churchill. I don't know, these people are people. They're probably not. They're not people of faith. You know, they're just good. They're just people who heard the call and said, we can do something about it. All these Jews in Nazi Germany, everybody's profiting off of World War II. But for whatever reason, they get all these Jewish people out of this situation, out of all these concentration, out of Birkenau, out of Auschwitz, out of all these, out of this situation, and allow them to come to this country so they can have freedom here. Do we let that continue? You know, because there are no right kingdom? No, we don't let it continue. We don't let bad things continue because God said there's no good. No, he put somebody in place to rise up, to be an example, to show that there is still a God, there is still good, and there are still people who are capable of being better and doing better. We are capable of being better. And I think that's all people want to see. Can we be better? Can we be better?
No, I don't think that's what all, or I don't think that's all what all people want to see. I think
That's what they want.
Okay.
Good people.
Well, that's what I would say at least 1 billion people, possibly 3 billion people claim to believe, right? Because this is Christianity as a whole. This is what they teach, okay? Mankind is a depraved soul. Mm-hmm. Like they're waiting for, you know, their king to come and like wipe out all of the stuff, wipe out all of the evil on the earth.
I don't think that's all of Christianity. I think that I don't think that's the part of Christianity. I think that's not the takeaway that people should have about Christianity.
Right.
It's and if they do, that's a very sad, hopeless thought, because even the time, if you say you're a Christian, then even the time that Jesus walked the face of the earth, he didn't just do nothing. I mean, he helped the people he came in contact with. He gave people bread. He was like, go about your way, try and tell people how to have a better life, and then go about your business. Like he beat people over the head like some of these crazy pastors do right now. Like, for real. I don't think people live the example that he set forth. And if they really did, they wouldn't be doing saying half the nonsense they say right now. I just don't think people live the life. They don't live the truth. They don't live the truth. They talk a lot of shit, but they don't live the truth.
I will completely agree with that.
I agree as well.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
And
I said I agree as well.
A lot of people believe a lot of bad doctrine.
Yeah, you're right about that.
They kind of just believe their own. They just like made it up, and just people just run through life with no moral guidance and no direction.
Yeah.
And it's about to get a whole bunch of people killed. That's what I'm scared of. It's about to get a whole bunch of people killed.
I still think at their core, people individually, generally, this is just as a huge generalization, but I still think that regardless of like whether we perceive what people want as good or bad, people in general are inherently good in their own eyes. Mm-hmm. And they still, even if what we see them as doing is evil, to them, they are still doing like what they believe is the ultimate good. Yes. And that's where I think relativity comes into it, because I don't think there is such thing as a truly evil person, because I think first of all, every human being on the planet, without exception, is at our core self-serving. Every single thing that we do is so, whether even if it's something that we believe we're doing for the greater good of somebody else. If we're somebody who feels good after doing a good thing, the incentive of that satisfaction alone is the thing driving us to do something for somebody else. And we can say that it's based off faith, and it might be, but the initial thing that started our habit to wanting to do something good for somebody else came from the realization that, oh shit, I felt great after I did that. Maybe I should do more good things. And that in at the core of it is self-serving. It's being done for the satisfaction of doing a good thing for somebody else because we get that. Now people who don't feel that, they don't feel that same importance. And anyone who does has a way to justify why they do it, whether it be spiritual or not. But I don't, now that's to begin with. So I think first of all, people are already just by human nature self-serving. And I think that's what God meant when he said, like, all humans are born in sin. Mankind is born out of sin. There's no way to get away from it. There's no possible way. You cannot be without sin, because at your core, you are always going to be self-serving. There's nothing you can ever do that will not be for your own satisfaction. And so if you
go ahead. I don't want to lose this point though. Go ahead.
If you take that even further to where you're looking at other people, and if you wanted to judge somebody as good or bad, I don't think there's such thing as just an inherently bad person. First of all, we're already doing things to be self-serving, but if that's the case, then whatever anybody is doing that we see as bad to them is good. And relativity would state that, like, they are the main character of their own story, and whatever is good to them is good, to the rest of reality. That's one of the laws of their reality, because that's their perspective. And I guess that was really my point, like dealing with things like that, like on the spectrum of good or bad, good or evil, light or dark, anything that is what its base is. I think it's very hard, because you'll never get everybody to agree on things like that. It's too relative, and it's just like people's spirituality. It's very personal. One person's will never make complete sense to the other person. It's a very personal thing. It's the thing that you personally have faith in. You've connected these dots yourself, and this is the thing that gives you strength. It doesn't give everybody else the strength it gives you. And you could explain it a million times over to somebody, and they still wouldn't get what you get out of it. They might get something else out of it. So I think relativity makes it really, really tough to categorically place anybody. If we're talking about tying religion into today's either blindness or awareness of the racial discrimination that's going on with people.
Okay, so you say relativity. Now, when you use that phrase, that implies that there is no absolute truth. And for me, coming from a religious perspective of things, or I hate again the word religious, but a God perspective type things, that there is an absolute truth. Like, you don't get to decide yourself what is inherently good or evil. Like, there's a standard that comes from somebody beside you. You don't get to decide. It's not relative. There's a moral absolute.
Okay, so that would say that if you believe that God's opinion is the one true right opinion, then the law of relativity is it's nothing. Like, it's like an idea that falls short. I mean,
what do you mean
I'm
the
not
law?
saying,
Are you talking like physics law of relativity, or
that's pretty much what would state that everything that's being experienced by the experiencer is what's real.
Okay, that's something that man made up. There's no proof. I mean, they call things laws, like the law of gravity. Like, is it Liana? Is that right?
Lorna.
Lorna. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Brought up earlier
Can't hear you.
that that
You
physics
can
go
literally
back and forth.
read her name.
Oh, it's all good.
I can't. Oh, I don't. My camera like flips to who's talking.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
okay.
you
Hold
can
on.
change
Let
that
me.
too.
Oh, perfect. Oh, look, now I got all four of you. I can look at y'all differently.
Oh my
Look at this.
God, the
How
whole
neat is that?
time.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Look,
Hey,
man,
no,
like
no,
I
hey,
don't
don't feel
have
bad, man.
Instagram. I don't have
I was the
Facebook. I
same
don't do
way.
that stuff. You know what I mean?
I didn't
don't
see
do that
all
stuff.
four of us until Jen came and used my phone, and now I can see all four of
Oh,
us.
see. Oh, that's cool. Woo! All right. But anyway, yeah, Lorna was saying like that physics changes their mind. Like science has changed their mind back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I know the stuff that is written in the Bible hasn't changed. You can go back 2,000 years ago to what they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls to the actual stuff that was really translated. And I mean, it's still
the same. Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, have-
99.9%.
I've read the Dead Sea Scrolls and I
on.
was like,
I mean,
what?
it is like,
It's the same.
it is
You
very
translated
well
them?
translated, very well translated, and protected. But that's what the Jews have always done. They protect those documents. And which the Jews themselves are a peculiar people because I don't really see any ancient Persians or Babylonians. Why did this little people from Israel make it out? Why are we still talking about these people? But that's a whole nother topic.
I hear you when you talk about points of view where people will never see themselves as evil. We talk about that a lot in writing when we write villains. Because if you ask the villain in the story, are they a villain? They say no, because they have reasons for why they do the things they do. They don't like even I was an assistant on the show Dexter, but he had a reason, he had a philosophy.
Ooh,
My
that's a
son's
crazy
name
show.
is Dexter. The
I
baby.
love the
that
name.
It's
I did not like
because
the
I
ending.
was obsessed.
Oh
with
no, the
that
ending
movie.
was terrible, and
Oh
I
my
hated
God, it
it.
was fucking horrible. I
It
was
was-
so pissed.
It was.
they deviated. They
It
deviated.
seemed like they just
Why?
totally rushed through it and was like, just do this. He goes
And
off
like
on that.
they
horrible
deviated it.
CGI storm in the freaking
Yeah.
ocean. What happened? Please, just like a small synopsis.
I will tell you what happened.
Ugh.
I won't put it on the audio recording, but I'll tell you now.
We'll cut it out.
Yeah, we'll cut.
Okay. But what happened? When I worked on the show, they had the original showrunner, and the creator had already left. He went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But
Okay.
the showrunner and the number two, and then my boss came along, who became like a number 3, 2, whatever. Anyways, they had mapped out the show for 5 seasons and had determined that at the end of the 5th season, you really can't take the show any further. And then at the end, he would die. And that's kind of how we mapped it out. Every single season, it was sort of like building story, but we were getting to the point where he died. Well, Showtime and the Colleton Company, who was the other production company that brought the show to Showtime, said, we don't want it to end at 5 seasons because we want to keep making more money. And the showrunner and the other were like, no, well, you can't take the show any further because it will fall apart because of the nature of the character and the nature of the stories, you would basically destruct the whole series. Like it wouldn't work. And they were like, we're going to do it. And so all those people quit. The original showrunner quit. The number 2 quit. The guy who I worked for quit. Everybody left.
Oh, wow.
And when you have that many people who are the keeper of the original story or the original vision, it's really hard to make it be good. And they just kept going because they just thought, oh, we're just going to keep going because we don't have anything on the air to replace it. And it just fell apart. And then they thought, oh, we're going to make a movie. That's why really the finale was such a shit show. They were like, we're going to make a movie. And so when they decided they were going to make a movie, they had to end it. They couldn't let Dexter die.
Wow.
Which is what the original conceit was, because he'd killed so many people. It's like,
I knew it was some stupid shit like that. Like,
so they were like, we want to make a Dexter movie. And so then of course that led them to that god awful, terrible ending.
Oh my God, it was so disappointing.
It was so
the
dumb.
whole show is so amazing. Like,
yeah, it fell apart. Everybody left and they were like, we don't like this. We're out. This is not what we signed
Didn't
up
he like leave his kid with
yes,
what the
Yes.
fuck
that
is her
crazy ass
name?
bitch.
Lumen?
Yeah. All
Lumen.
insane. I was gone. I was also one of the people who departed. I left as well.
Oh
That's
my
fine.
God.
But
Dude, why
to,
did you just
awesome.
go? Why didn't you just go with Lumen and your kid? You could have been gone, bro. Like
I
y'all would have
know.
been
So
y'all would have been a
insane.
duo.
But I don't think most people operate, or think about religion. I don't think most people are Christian or religious. I just think there's a very few handful of people who actually keep God in mind, but that doesn't mean that God isn't using them or saying words of comfort and peace to people. I think some of the most profound and prolific people aren't necessarily people of faith, but I certainly get something out of listening to them. And it doesn't mean that God, the creator of the universe, hasn't given them something to share to people. I mean, even Judas was helpful to mankind, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
He was very helpful
Very
to
good
mankind.
point.
Very helpful. So, I mean, when there's a scripture that says, I don't know, it's a saying. I don't even think it's a scripture verse. It's like, let the Lord use you. Like, you don't know the Lord is using you, but the Lord is using you. so, I guess to your point, like, I think it's very arbitrary when I say being better, because it's, what is that? What is being better? What are we looking for? And I think it goes back even to what you said, Jen, when you were like, oh, I don't think that's what people want. Well, I thought that was so smart and so good, because it was like, oh yeah, it made me question, oh, when I say being better, what does that look like? Because people don't know what being better is, because there's not a picture of it. And I was like, oh, that's really smart. And so when you were like, oh, it's relative and people don't see themselves as evil, it's like, oh yeah, well, that's because they don't know what better is. And Will, you were so spot on, because you were like, oh, well, there's absolute morals. Okay, well, people don't know what the baseline of morals is. How do they know what morality is?
Right.
So it's just all very interesting. But I think people at their core, to your point, to all your points, I think people at their core know what right and wrong is. I think at their core, they know to kill somebody is a very wrong thing.
Yeah.
I think but I also think the murderer may not. The murderer is following their passion. The murderer likes to kill and feels like that is their God-given purpose, to kill people.
And if you're like Dexter,
yeah, if you're a rapist,
it's okay.
You're a pedophile. It's a very distressing thing to have compassion for pedophiles. But if you're born with a certain predisposition at 5 years old and you realize you like other 5-year-olds and you never grow out of that, what is that? That's psychotic. But that is what their brain is telling them. Is that evil?
Did you see the Dr. Phil of the was he 5 years old?
I can't look at stuff like that. Honestly, I think about it, but I can't look at it because it's so painful and devastating.
This kid was a pet.
So
he
sad.
told his parents that he likes little kids. Like, I think he was more like 10, something like that. But violent, like he wants to do it even if they don't want him to,
Oh my God.
that kind of stuff. And I'm like, so what does that mean? He was born that way? Has he seen something he wasn't supposed to?
Well, they've done some research and they determined that it is a chemical imbalance, that they're lacking this particular type of chemical that all our brains normally creates,
right?
But theirs does not. But it's a very distressing thing. But it all goes back to points of view and like what people perceive as good, as better, as evil, as righteous. And I think people's baseline is very, very destructive, but I do think God has a baseline. I do think God has an absolute moral, but I don't think people are aware of that baseline or moral because not many people care to know any kind of spiritual text. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think people care to know because they just don't know to care to know. Again, this goes back to the being uneducated stuff. They don't know there's anything better out there. And that's the frightening thing about it. It's people who are born and raised inner city. Like, that's all they know. That's all I can think about these kids who are in these gangs. And, I hear like the red side talking about how horrible these kids are and stuff like that. And yes, in your standards, they are horrible. And this would be unacceptable behavior where you're at. But it's a different life, man. It's a different code. They don't understand the things you do. They don't know there's a different side of life. This is what they see.
That's such a good point. They don't know there's another side to life. That's what
they don't.
They don't know there's another side to life because that's the only side they've been taught, been seen, been bred. And I think even if you know it, you're like, how can I get it? It's so far away. It's like you're looking at the other side of life as if it's like on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. How am I going to get there? I don't have a boat. I don't have a car. So I'm stuck. So I think,
there's no clear path or anything.
There's no clear path. So how do I get to that other side? It seems like every road I take is blocked. Every boat I find is broken. Every tire I find is busted. It's how do I get there? And then you're just sort of stuck there. I mean, I'm now on a show called All American. And so we work with a lot of gang members and real ones. We hired some because we were always in the hood. We were always on,
Can you give a short, what's the show about? I'm gonna watch it.
Oh yeah, All
I haven't.
American is about a kid who grew up in South LA, and he ends up. It's based on a true story. It's based on a real guy named Spencer Pasinger who did grow up in South LA, who ended up being transferred into Beverly Hills High. So he went to high school Beverly Hills and was in high school. And of course, we've changed up a lot because it's our fictitious retelling, but the heart of the story is the same. He grew up in the South LA. He ended up in Beverly Hills High. He was living between both worlds and experiencing his cousin, who was a gang member, and him going to Beverly Hills, which colors were blue. So
Yeah.
when he had to hide his blue uniform when he would get to the other side. And one time he forgot and had a blue jersey on. They tagged his house, was going to kill him, and his cousin had to step in. He had to leave the house for like 2 weeks, go to his grandpa's house on the other side of town because he was going to be shot. And so it was like negotiating between gang life, but trying to get to the other side. And he did end up going to play pro ball. He got it. He won a Super Bowl. He played with a few teams. Jaguars, New York is where he retired from after he won the Super Bowl with one of the Manning brothers. I think Eli.
It'd have been Eli. Yep.
Yeah. And so he, but now they've made his story and fictionalized version of his life into a TV show. So we were shooting near his home, and we always have to pay. We had to pay to be everywhere. Like if we didn't, gangs would steal all of the production stuff. And so we had to hire gang members to be our security.
Wow.
At one point, the line producer, who's a little white Jewish lady, said, "Guys, you can't keep shaking me down like this. What can I do to stop this shakedown?" And they laughed and they thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And so she said, "Who can I hire? I'll hire any one of you." And one of the guys stepped forward and he took the job, and he's still working with us, and we're all trying to help him move his life forward in however way we can. We've been trying to give him whatever resources we have to help him. And we've promoted him twice, and we're trying to what area does he want to be in? How can we help him? But it's like those opportunities don't exist. Like we were shooting there and we brought him on, but those normally
That's
they don't
so rare.
They don't exist, right?
Right.
That's
That's amazing that they're doing that. Y'all are doing that.
Well, I mean, it's a small thing. I mean, we are shooting down there, but to your point, like if you don't know how you're going to get to the other side, how do you get to the other side?
Yeah.
How do you get there? You just know what you know.
You're not taught. Like I love movies. Lean on Me. Have you ever seen that? Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Man, love that movie.
Mhm.
And just thinking about that, and God, what was the one that came out when I was growing up? Gangster's Paradise or something. My
with
sister
Michelle
loved that
Pfeiffer.
movie. Yeah.
Yes.
And thinking about these inner city schools and things like that, like how true and accurate are these movies? Like, do these kids really even have a chance at life?
Yeah, they really don't. I mean, the bullying, the beating up, Earl, you said it, looking behind your back because you don't know who's going to get you, because everybody's it's crabs in a barrel. Everybody's trying to get because no one has anything. And it's I just, I can't imagine. Like I just grew up in a rural country town. That's my story. I grew up in a rural country town from a very small island town. So
yeah.
I
And it's
remember-
different worlds, entirely different worlds.
Different world. But there's a little bit of objectivity to it because I am Black and I am treated a certain way. But I
like
don't
even
sit in the space,
and even just because of that, like you're going to have different conversations with people. Like you you'll go up to a Black person and you would have a conversation with them that I could never have with them.
Yeah.
Just
No,
because
but it shouldn't be
just
that
a
way.
natural.
And that's what I think this
well,
whole thing
no,
is about.
but again,
Well, there's a
you do not
natural,
change people like that.
What?
Man, people naturally relate on certain things, and some people don't.
But you can listen to other stories,
Yeah, you
and
can
you
definitely
can learn
listen,
from
but
them, and you can not get mad that they're telling you a truth in their own life. Like that's the problem, I think, with all the fighting and shit. Like, why do we even have racist? What do they give a fuck?
no,
You know
I'm
what I
not.
mean?
I'm not justifying the separation as racism would put it. I'm saying I will oversimplify the shit out of it. I'll say a football player can come talk to you about playing football, but it's not going to be the kind of conversation if he goes and talks to another football player.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just not the same. Yeah, you might be able to relate. You might have some kind of interest in football. You might even be a football buff and know like everything about football. But if you're not playing football, then there's certain things that you and them just will not be able to see eye to eye on. You won't be
Yeah.
able to relate.
Yeah. Honestly, I think you guys, I'll be honest, but Earl, Will, Jen, you probably have an easier time talking to the black people than I would, because this voice is like, oh, you're just trying to be black. You're just trying to be white. Oh, you don't really understand the
Oh,
struggle.
you're Uncle Tom or
You
whatever
don't
they call.
not not even
Is
Uncle
it?
Tom, but you don't really understand the struggle.
You're not in the
Okay.
hood.
You're
Okay.
not in the hood. Like, they would give Earl more street cred than me, because they're like, oh, well, he's down. You not. Like,
See, I was gonna say this. So, like, I grew up cushy, like
Interesting.
super cushy, right? Like, I told y'all, all white neighborhood. We went on trips all the time, vacations, which I have no fucking clue how they did that, because like now my kids, this is our vacation. The house is the vacation. We go outside and play on the playground, like that. It's expensive as shit, and they did a lot for us. We were in every sport, all that shit. When I went to junior high and had like all these other cultures, like I hung out with all Mexicans. I dated a Mexican through junior high and high school. I went willingly to a Crips meeting. Like, my parents had no fucking clue where it was. I don't even know how they even let that happen. Like, I would freak the shit out on my kid. But like, I was intrigued by it, not stuck in it, I guess.
yeah.
But like, I wanted that because it was more accepting of a community than what the white community felt like to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
black people are
this,
very accepting because we know what it feels like to be hated. And
right.
when
Not
you,
black chicks, though. I
yes.
am okay. So I just now can get along with black women, but in school, Hispanic women and black women were never cool with me because I was hanging out with their guys, I guess. I don't know. Like,
It's a
it was
very, very hard thing.
it was
Yeah.
weird. So, but
But again, that would lead right into there's the only way to truly fix any kind of ism, be it racism, sexism, whatever one you want to call it, is education. Like, you have to learn to be patient and understanding and tolerant with people and understand that you're not their judge.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you don't get to be their judge, period.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think
That's
it's
good.
important
just
to know
chill out.
also though, like talking about education, like be educated on the atrocities that have been committed.
Yes.
Like, yes, you should know. We all should know how we're supposed to be and the correct way that all of us are deviating from. But at the same time, we also should know the things that have not been spoken about, that for a lot of people are the root of why things are not taken.
Okay. And I agree. I believe those things do need to be talked about, but they have to be talked about very carefully because they are
Well-
very sensitive topics,
Well,
and
hey,
it could easily be
yes,
used like
you're right,
a
but just
rallying point or whatever. But if you have like educated people, like, oh, the four of us, even we're, I'm nobody, you know what I mean? So, but us sitting here talking and understanding this in a calm setting to be like, yes, this makes sense, but not, pushing it, be like, oh, this is, what used to be done to da 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 da, because that drives, it fuels hatred. Like,
yeah, I
what
want to say
happened to,
something.
like, we're trying to better mankind. It's like they're not. We're just pushed hatred all the time now, and divisiveness, just divide,
Yeah, but
hate each other for no reason.
that's also like that's one perspective. You're right, and I'm not saying that anything that you said is wrong, but understand it from this. You were talking about sensitivity, like we need to be sensitive towards some things, and also what you were saying about earlier, how accurate are some of these movies? Like, in some, you were talking about some of these inner city schools, and like, does it really go some of the ways that it has been portrayed through Hollywood? And I remember, like personal accounts of being out there in Cali back in the day, and I saw like entire apartment buildings get raided, and they would really kick in like every door. arrest damn near every male that lived there, every female that lived there almost, charge them with all kinds of shit, plant drugs on everybody. Fucking no way in hell the entire apartment complex. You know, there are good people that lived out there too that weren't really into, you know, illegal shit. That were really just trying to get by. Like there were school
Yeah,
teachers,
they were just trying to
there
live
were
their
store
life.
owners,
Yeah.
there were employees of all kinds of other businesses. Not everybody was out there just fucking around being thugs and prostitutes and pimps and drug dealers and gang members. Like not that wasn't what everyone was doing. Especially if you got to live in a fucking house. And that was how we saw it, you know, like my family. That's how I got to look at it. And I was like, I mean, I know some people out here that ain't even doing that shit. So I know like if you're better off, a lot of people ain't really gonna be like people out here living honestly. But I saw like entire apartment buildings, whole damn complex get people get pulled out. And what that did was create pretty much for the next generation, that whole
Mm,
fucking generation, all the fathers were taken out of their kids' lives,
mm,
and when they get out of prison, if they ever fucking get out, they're felons and they can't get a job and they have to
mhm.
resort to some kind of illegal shit. And they're also estranged and disconnected from their family. So there's that works against this community. There's also all the children that were put into the foster care system and grew up without their parents, and now they're all fucked up in the head, and they don't get the right kind of influence. They're left up to the system, which already doesn't fucking take care of people the right way. And when you put black people in there, they don't give an extra fuck. So there's that working against you. And then on top of that, there's
Extra
all your
fuck.
mothers, all the mothers that were taken out of those homes. Now they, if they weren't taken to prison, and if they got to stay home and their kids got to stay home, now they got to try and raise this family on their fucking own. And there's all kind, man. Look, I grew up with my mom when my dad left, and yeah, he got arrested, and but she wasn't pissed off at the cops that arrested him. Like she was pissed off that he was in the wrong situation at the wrong time, and yada yada yada. The areas we were around were bad, and I already know like the kids that I went to school with and that I was able to like be in the same class as, they weren't. Man, we all talked about what our parents said. Like, and as a kid, it's like you're 5 and 6. You know, conversation was, it was very simple, but you like I remember glimpses and stuff of being back then. I was like kindergarten, first grade, and man, I remember one kid told, I think his name was Terrence. He told me that one day he just wasn't allowed to play with me no more, and he told me his parents told him that I'm the enemy or my people are the enemy, and that's why he's not allowed to play with me. And
Holy
he's supposed to
smokes.
hate me because I like my people hate his people. And and you know, as a kid, you're like, that's stupid. You're dumb. Like you know, it's like butthead and shut up, stupid face. And it was nothing, you know, back then. But as I get older, you know, you think back on it, and it's like you can. I definitely got to experience like how much shit like that never gets talked about just got swept under the rug and is not like, every time I talk to people about this, people are like, whoa, really? Oh my god, like no way. And like, man, this is, yeah, but for some people like this was reality to them, and that lasts generations. You know, people tell their kids about things, people instill mentalities to their grandkids, to their great grandkids, and the world goes on, and nothing's changed since then. Things still happen, it's just a little more sneaky now because technology's a little better. But like what I saw, I remember seeing the same kind of shit in movies, like stuff that I witnessed firsthand while I was out there. And even when I came to Texas, like even just regular shit, you know, because even when I got to Texas, I was drawn to a certain crowd of people, and I like to go to the hood. And you just get to see like how the lower class is treated, because it's not like, once, man, it's not just black people, you know. But when sh- shit, man, when you're in a field of daisies and there's a couple roses and a couple tulips, when the lawnmower comes through, it's mainly hitting daisies, you know. So if you're a tulip out there, you might see a couple tulips get dropped too, but you're mainly looking at daisies getting taken down all over the fucking place. And that's how I'll say it, for being like, if you're not black or you're not Mexican, depending on what part of the hood you go to, that's what it's like. Because man, the police don't give a fuck. Like in certain areas, you get to see it firsthand, and then you see it in movies, and you see it just, if this is something we need to be sensitive about, man, some people, this is real experience for them, and it's just profited off of. Like this gets to be the stereotype, and y'all get to fucking look at it every day. And we don't see it like that. It's not the emotional response from us. You know, we don't get to go through that like these motherfuckers, you know, every time. Every time it flashes across the TV, or every time a new movie comes out, and all the black people that are in the movie are either sidekicks or bad guys. You know, and it's main character is always white. Hey, I mean shit, did you see what was it? Prince of Persia? The Persians are the good guys and they're white. You know, and then in 300 the Persians are the bad guys and they're all black. But they're Persians.
Oh no, they
And,
do a whole sweep of that.
oh man.
Yeah, during in film and TV and representation and all that. But
Okay.
yeah, you're
So
right.
yeah, you're suggesting intent then. Like where
I
who
would
is
suggest
the
I say yes. I would be suggesting that it's intent through observation of patterns.
right?
I mean, are we talking about? I mean, when I think about law enforcement, the Klan, you know, when I say the Klan, KKK, they originally were born out of slave catchers, bounty hunters. They go catch, you know, the slaves who had ran away because that's money. You know,
So
when you look at the
just
books.
real
go ahead.
quick here, I actually live like 25 minutes away from the place the KKK came from. I did
Oh,
not know that until the other day. I was watching the History Channel and I was like,
Bedford.
what? Oh, Pulaski, Tennessee. Pulaski, Tennessee.
Tennessee. Oh, I'm thinking of Nathan Bedford. I'm thinking of the guy.
Oh, yeah, the guy. Yeah, Nathan Bedford Forest. There was a
Yeah.
golf course here named Forest Crossing. It was after it.
I'm not surprised. That does not surprise me.
That's some shit.
Yeah.
but I mean, that's where they're from. The law enforcement is born out of that. They arrived from catching Black people and putting them back into slavery. That history of law enforcement has not changed. I read a 1964 article, or no, 1956 article. I was doing research on this other project. I was working for somebody. And so I was going back into the archives, and this Klan member, he was very candid, because you can say what you want back then. You can be as honest as you want because there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Right.
And he said, I joined the Klan and now I'm a leader. I'm a chapter head, and it's been great for business. He was like, you know what? We're not going to be lynching and doing all that stuff as much anymore. We're just going to go into politics and law enforcement. We're going to be judges. We're going to be this. And like, there was a full plan laid out of how discrimination could continue, because the hatred is just so deep. It's fascinating because I'm always struck, and I think most people in general, not just Black people, I think most people are struck by the intense level of hatred that some white people have toward Black people. And that's always very shocking to me, the lengths that people will go through because you don't want this other group of people to have anything. And it's the shock. It's almost unbelievable. Like, I think even for Black people, which is what I said, am I crazy? Would they really go? And then you realize, oh yes, they really do. They really hate you that much. They do. Settle in. They hate you. and I think that's the revelation that people are coming toward, and I think it makes the hate right back, which now makes what MLK was saying so much more powerful when he said peace and love. And it seems so ridiculous, but it was like, oh yes, you can't fight hate with hate, which is what you were experiencing, Earl, in those situations. There was nobody saying you can't fight hate with hate. You can't hate a white person because you experienced hate by a white person. You can't do that. You don't, that's not how you surpass, that's not how you overcome it. You overcome with love. They should have, but to a certain point, I do hear Black people say, I'm tired of loving, because all I get is spit in the face. Every time I love, I get spit in the face. I mean, even recently, it's funny that you mentioned your story, because my daughter, who's 6, she's 8 now, but she was in camp like a few years ago, and she was 6 at the time. And a white girl said, I can't be your friend anymore. Your skin is black and it's going to rub off on me. This is in
Whoa.
2019.
What the fuck?
What the fuck? Like, what?
Yeah, that's how it works.
And I was like, okay, I knew this was coming. Didn't think it was going to happen at age 6. in 2019, 2018, but okay, we're here and this is happening. And I mean, it happened to me countless times, you know, in various ways where people were like, you're never going to be anything, you're never going to amount to anything, you know. It's just, you know, but you can't, even for both of us, you can't fight those people. You can't fight people like that with hate. And I don't think we'll get anywhere by hating because you're hated, you know.
No, we're all meant to love each other and take care of
Yeah, we
one
really
another.
are.
And even if we have opposing views, we still respect. I mean, what's so hard about that? Like, there's been so many people that, like, maybe things they do disgust me, but I don't have hate for them. And, like, this was an argument I got into on Facebook today. Not even, I don't get into them. I just, like, sit there and read everybody's angry whatever about it. But, like, I don't think it's right for people to be like, oh, thank God Trump has COVID. I hope he fucking dies and shit like that. It's like, why? Like, why? You know, what's the point in even like harboring that emotion towards a person you literally don't personally know? I'm not saying the guy's amazing, okay? I don't know. Nobody really knows him. And the most of the shit we get is like, who
It's
it's
funny, I
all,
was good friends with Omarosa for a long time, and so I did meet him and
oh, did you? Damn
feel
it.
like I know him because she knew him so well. And for a long time, he like hooked her up and gave her jobs, and he was very grateful to her for helping him on The Apprentice. And he was like, if you hadn't basically you hadn't been the crazy psycho that you were, my show would have went down the hole, and I appreciate you for continuing to do that. And so he would always look out, and you know, he gave her jobs. And a lot of the people they're talking about I've met before, just by proxy from hanging out with her. um, so he is that guy. I mean, he is that guy. In all the things that people, the things you don't like are all very true. But I mean, like, to your
But
point,
is there
Earl,
also the good
he,
side that he helps people out? He takes care of people that
well,
like
it's like a
what?
gang. It's a gang mentality. It's
Well,
a
of course it is.
gang. It's
But that's life. I mean, I know jobs around here that, you know, if you want a job there, you have to know somebody to get in there. You know, like life is very segregated. More everybody sorts into groups. Now, my generation grew up right after segregation and stuff happened, and I
Mhm.
went to school like I want to say it was probably 50-50.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and you know, there were a lot of mixed children that came out of this happening. And I
Mhm.
remember my grandmother saying, oh my gosh, this one's having a little black baby, blah blah, I can't remember this. And then my cousin got pregnant by a black guy, and she's like, oh my god, it's just the cutest thing. And all hatred went away. Like it's the craziest thing, you know, like they see
So
things
in
and then
saying that, we all
people
need to make
adjust.
mixed
Like
babies.
it's like they get their
Cute
eyes open,
little
like they get
baby.
like an epiphany happens or something. Be like, you know, wow, they're not
I
monsters,
totally
they're just
agree.
normal people
It's
like
just a
us.
Yeah,
fucking
I
human
totally agree.
being. A
But it takes
beautiful thing.
you know, I mean, like, you know, like a Trump and getting COVID, like he didn't think it was real. I mean, he heard about it in February, but he
Who?
still, you know, Trump, when he heard about President Trump, when he heard about COVID, he heard about it
Okay.
back in or January or whatever, that it was going to be bad. But he put his, you know, he just was like, okay, well, it'll go away after a while. But then he gets it, and so now there's sort of an awakening. But that's the thing with people. Like, I listen to people talk about all these people dying, you know, they're talking about all these people dying like, oh, it's okay for them to die. And it's like, where's the compassion? That's somebody's grandmother, that's somebody's aunt, that's somebody's uncle. Not everybody dying is old. You know, there's no compassion until it happens to them. And my only thing is, why does it have to happen to you? Why does something have to happen to you before you realize that hating is wrong? Like, why do you have to have a black grandchild before you understand that hating is not like hating somebody just because of a perceived skin color difference?
Well,
it's
but that's
it's
just again.
mind-boggling.
But just think about it like this, right? There's two sides to every coin. Just
Yeah.
like you have those that are in the inner city that cannot escape their mindsets. You have those that were raised out here that cannot escape their mindsets, right?
That's fair.
They're programmed with the same, backwards information or twisted information that this group is. It's just from a different side.
Okay, this is what I was saying the other day is like, I was talking to my dad about my mom's dad. He lived in Hearst, Texas. It was white. Then the people started, excuse me, started like passing away. The houses started getting rented. And he was like old dude that would sit out on his driveway and like watch everybody and all that. And he legit said, all these N-words moving in are going to lower the property value of our home. Okay. But he was old as shit. And at the time, okay, I'm like 10 or 11, so I definitely didn't fight about it. But now, even looking at it, I'm like, I don't hate him for it. It's how he was raised. Okay. So it's not, I don't know. It's wrong. Right.
Property value wouldn't go down if black people had better jobs.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, there's
like what?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's
No,
under
but
the
I'm saying
assumption
the
that all
point
black
is,
people have shit jobs
the
and they're the
point
only ones going
is,
to move in, and no white people want to come back.
okay, I get that. But the point is, kind of like what Billy's saying, is like everybody comes from a different generation or a different like upbringing. And so
Right.
we can get along still. Like I guess what y'all are saying is like by
People are
educating
too quick
and
to
by
rush to judgment.
having like good conversations with people and not being just like immediately hated. Like I didn't immediately hate him because he said the N-word, even though it like struck a nerve. Obviously, I'm not black either, so I can't really say like, but that's not gonna make me hate him. Maybe I would try to like talk to him about why that was wrong, and like hopefully change his mind about it or whatever. I just think there's a lack of understanding between people.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you get to the heart of why they think what they think, they realize, oh, well, it's because my grandpa or my pop
Right.
before that or my pop for that. But it's time. It takes time to unravel that, and it takes effort to unravel that. And most people don't want to have those conversations because it's uncomfortable and it takes too long, and you just don't care enough. And you're like, okay, whatever you think is fine with me. But now, because things are feeling so combustible, everybody's taking the time to have the conversation. Like, you guys are, this is really amazing. Like, if this hadn't happened, maybe you guys wouldn't have decided to have the conversation. So I think it's beautiful that we all get to chat, and I get to know your stories and get to meet you guys on an intimate level. I think it's amazing, and I'm so happy that this is happening.
Likewise.
And I'm so happy I'm getting to talk to you guys and meet you all. But I mean, that's why I say I'm slightly grateful, because now people are having the real conversation, which I think is the most important thing. Not necessarily, I mean, I guess everything works together. I like I said, I don't understand sometimes how screaming at people who, I mean, I watched videos of, when they were trying to desegregate schools, and this tiny little girl who's like 5 is walking up the stairs, and all these like adult people are hurling insults at her. Like, really? That's the hatred we're dealing with? You're going to insult a 9-year-old? Like, I mean, that's the level of hate. So it's like, how do you overcome that after all these years? Well, you have the conversation that we never had. These are the conversations we never
what I was gonna
had.
Say. Yes.
You're right.
But you don't amplify the situation.
No,
you know
you don't.
It's
You
just like,
have the conversation.
Yeah.
You
It's
just
a
have the conversation.
discussion.
Yes.
And you walk away and you love each other almost even more just because you're
or not. I mean, I've had friends
that's
who
fine.
had the conversation and it didn't go so well.
I get that, but that's because somebody escalated.
You're right.
It's not, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is like everybody thinks that they're right. And if you could just admit you don't fucking actually know anything that's truly going on. We are not being told the truth. I'm sorry. Like, I do not believe half the shit I believe more conspiracies than I believe truths. That is me, and I'm sorry, it just is. Like, I'm all Pizzagate and all that shit because I do believe Pizzagate is a thing, and I think
not a thing.
Yes, it is.
Not a thing.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, I live in Hollywood. I work here. I know all this stuff.
I know, but you
because I'm
not
friends with half these people.
John Podesta.
I mean, none of these things are real. I think they're wrapped in things I think a lot of the things that we hear are wrapped in, there's a level of truth to it. I think there's a level of truth to it, but I think you have to be careful when you take in the whole thing, because a lot of it is just kind of lies
Right. Okay. So I
that
don't
people
believe
that people have concocted to make people crazy. I just think sometimes.
right. And
It's
there's
crazy.
also there's just like a large takeaway that I take from something, not like extreme little details. And there's like, so like adrenochrome. I don't know about that shit.
I don't
Like,
know about it.
really?
So
I'm-
I read this stuff. So adrenochrome is nothing but like oxidized adrenaline.
Oh.
So you really, it's harvested. If you're going to harvest it, it's from a little organ like right above the kidneys.
Mhm.
So
I
you
thought
could
they were
just
saying
take it
it's from like the
straight
pineal
up.
gland or whatever
No,
in the brain.
it's not. No, it's not.
Whatever, all that stuff, the frazzle drip, all that thing, like that's a little outlandish to me. But the John Podesta emails and Hillary Clinton emails,
There's
and
nothing in the emails.
yes, there is
Guys,
Obama emails.
they all printed them all out. I mean, we have like there's a whistleblower literally who cannot come into this country, Edward Snowden, who released all of them, and they literally say nothing, at least for Hillary's side. I mean, they tried to. I mean, John Comey
What do you?
released all the emails. Did you read the emails?
Okay,
Yes,
okay. Before we get on this
yes.
subject,
Nobody
before we,
read all the
okay.
emails.
Not
Okay.
all of them, no. But are
Nobody
you
read all
serious
the
about the ones that are in
there were
question? How do
there
you
were
explain
so
I think
them?
some
many.
of them are lies, because I think you just have to be careful what you read. I do think you have to be careful what you read, because people can
On
make things up.
WikiLeaks?
Only because I'm a creator. I create things all the time. I'm around people who make shit up all day long. We type
Yeah,
things.
that's how I think.
Our literal job is to make things look real. That is
There's
what we
so
do
much on.
for a living. We make shit up all day long.
Guys, I actually think we're living in a reality TV show.
We really
like
are.
in real life. Like this is not a
Like the
joke.
Truman
Like
Show.
okay, listen, because what Hillary Clinton
Wait,
did,
Lorna. When
the
you say
emails.
that we really are you joking or what's up?
Right. Actually,
What
can
do
you
you
just let us
know?
in on this?
Well, I mean, I just
Is
think
it the Matrix?
I always think that because I was listening to this documentary on Elon Musk, and he literally said this. He literally said this. He's like, we don't know if we're living in the Matrix right now. I was like, oh dear Lord. And then I started to look at the walls.
Yeah, girl. Or like the freaking Truman Show, yeah.
So think it like you're living in a shell that's been constructed around you, like in your mind. Like you behave a certain way, you think a certain way, you act a certain way. Ooh, excuse me, because of how we've all been programmed. The TV shows we see, we've all been programmed to think a certain way, and it
Also
doesn't
be
matter where you come
desensitized
from.
to everything.
Well, no, not everyone. Okay. It all depends on where you come from in your walk of life, because everyone is different. Like the people in the inner city are programmed to behave a certain way, stereotypical way. The people in the country are programmed to behave a certain way, stereotypical way. Like that way, when you show up into the country, you see a bunch of dudes with shit kickers on and cowboy hats. You go to the inner city, you see a bunch of saggy pants and a bunch of red or blue bandanas or whatever. These stereotypes are there. Like they've created what they have on the TV. We see it on our streets outside.
Well,
That's life.
It's the age-old question. Art imitates life, life imitates art. Who's imitating who? Who's copying who? I mean, a lot of times I write things that I see. Like I'll probably put you and Earl or Jen in one of my scripts, and you're going to see like some parts of your life inside of a story I wrote. Is that made up? Nope, because I met you guys. So I know you're real. So a lot of the times things that people create,
you have artistic license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're based on things that people see and experience. I mean, I worked with a guy who worked for Michael Mann, and Michael Mann is an insane person, and he wanted to do a drug lord movie, and he wanted this writer to go underground in Mexico to the cartel, the real cartel. He calls the man's wife and says, "Do you have life insurance on your husband?" And she was like, "What?" Mind you, husband does not know. She was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He was like, "Well, the stuff he's doing, yeah, it could get him." Like he literally told the wife it could get him killed, and she was like, "No, we're not doing this." But he did end up doing some stuff. Michael Mann did manage to get some connection with the cartel. He went to a couple meetings. He went to an auditorium style building underground where they were teaching people how to torture. That's what the Mexican cartel was doing. They were teaching people how to torture people and how to keep them alive and then kill them slower and keep them alive, kill them slower. So what I say to you is there are lots of people who are dedicated to their craft and they do a lot of research. We have,
Right.
when I was on the Shield,
Agree.
we did ride-alongs with cops. We were in Rampart. You know, they do their homework. They do their homework so things feel very, very real. And then we create a whole other story wrapped around the truth. So when I say you have to be careful what you believe, is like inside of the core of that, there's some truth in there. I'm not saying
Yes.
there's a truth in there, but the whole wrapping around it is probably made up.
Right.
Because it's like a game of telephone. You know, pass
Yeah.
it around, pass it down, pass it down, pass it down. Somebody's adding something, adding something. And then when you get to the kernel of it, you're like, okay, well, that part's probably true. I don't know about everything else.
Right.
Now you're just making shit up.
I
Because
also think like something that catches like the fake media and shit like that, or even the real media is like, you know what? They're stuck on this shit. Let's give them some shit to distract them from what we're actually fucking doing.
I mean,
Like,
Right. And
I
I
used
feel
to
like,
I used to believe all the stuff they posted about different people and like on TM, like not even necessarily TMZ, but like on, you know, all the gossip sites until I moved to LA and I met some of these people and I was like, oh, that's not true. That's a total lie. Oh, they just lied on you. They just totally lied on you. But no one's gonna sue every single time a tabloid
Right.
decides to lie on you, because at some point any publicity is good publicity. But a lot of times the things that people are writing, it's just flat out lies. It's just like literal lie. It's very interesting.
Well,
and,
it's right. It's
I
people
think,
trying to make a name for themselves, right? They want to try
well,
to
I
make
think
money.
that contributes to, Will, what you were talking about programming. When you were saying that people are all programmed a certain way. And I think if we're gonna look at that, you have to understand like what the program is, what exactly goes into the programming. And when like things like movies, like we said, we've all watched the same movies, so we all see the same things. That is programming like the general whole of society, but I feel like more so in a way like, how did that main character, what was the problem solving process? And then the next movie, what was the main character's problem solving process? Oh, conflict, how did he do it? He beat the shit out of the guy. Problem, how did he do it? He forced his way in there. How did he do it? He got in there and infiltrated and got it. It's, I think it's more so like, how do you handle issues and things that go deeper than like okay, a bunch of zombie movies started coming out 1 year or 2 years, and so that must mean like, oh, they're trying to program us to be ready for a global apocalypse. I don't think it's things that are so literal like that. I think it's more so things that are like I was saying before, like the like ideas and certain states of mind to stay in, and pretty much when you
angry
observe something,
and hatred.
like right, when you observe anything, you think a thought about the thing you're looking at. It's just naturally what happens in your brain. If you look at a water bottle, you think water bottle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and like thoughts create like thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think the programming aspect comes more so of like what consistently stays in front of your eyes and around your ears. Now, I think generally, yeah, if people are only watching the movies that are hitting the theaters and only listening to the radio and only eating the food that comes out of the box from Walmart, then or you know, ordering Domino's or something like that, then yeah, like full programming is in effect. But I think like people take it upon themselves to look at other things and like fill their minds with their own influences and shit. And I feel like generally there is the public opinion, which is like the public program, but there's more than one programming happening in every individual at all times. And I think if we're talking about people being programmed a certain way, you look at one inner city and then another inner city on the other side of the nation, they could have two completely differing kinds of issues going on. One could be totally like crime related and the other one could be like very economical, you know, but they have the same maybe financial impact to the city. So you could say like, oh, well, these inner cities are having the same problems due to, you know, the people are programmed the same way and they're all acting the same way and doing the same kind of shit, but they're causing two different separate problems that are leaving you with the same result. And I think that's, you can't always base everything on how people are being quote and programmed unquote, just because that to me is just too general of a blanket. It's too big of a blanket to throw because not everybody, it's more, too many holes are going to be poked through the damn blanket. You know, they're not going to fit under that one.
Well, I am sorry, guys. I have to jump off. My kiddos are gonna wake up early, and I have my job in
Yeah.
the morning.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Holy smokes, it's late, man. What
It
a great
is.
conversation.
Oh
Oh
wow.
my
That's
god,
great.
it got to 12 o'clock almost. Wow, I feel cool.
This is a good one.
Oh my god, this was so fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you guys so much. Lorna, thanks so much for being
Thank
on.
you.
Seriously, I'm
Thank
so
you. Thank you
excited.
guys so much. This was so amazing. This was so
Yes.
nice.
We will
So
have to
glad.
like definitely continue some
Yeah.
Oh man,
like
because it gets. I could like keep going. I could talk till the sun comes up.
I
I
know. I know.
Like I just like want to figure out how, like, where do we go? Like, how do we actually make positive change?
I truly, truly, truly do believe it's everybody just linking arms and agreeing that the uncomfortable conversation is okay. So we
yes.
can, so we
Yeah.
don't have to wait anymore.
But we're gonna have two massive groups of people that are not gonna agree with that. One
Oh,
is
yeah,
on
yeah.
the right side, the far
Yep.
right side, and the other's
Mhm.
on the far left side,
Yep.
or
But I
these
just, yeah.
fringe
Unless they
fringe
come
people.
speculate
Everybody
with
has
us and
Yes.
all
like
people have common grounds.
we
Yeah,
change
I
the
think-
world.
Yeah, I think everybody, I really do think at the core, everybody's very much alike, but it's like everybody wants to is only touching one side of the other person. They're touching the giant elephant ear and they're like, oh my God, this is so big. But, we're all one big, like we're all one thing. Like we're all the
Yes.
same to a certain degree. We all have different experiences and backgrounds that sort of shape our identity, but at the heart of it, we're all the same,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to your programming, Will, where everybody's kind of programmed to think that we're all different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do we?
Yeah, and we're
We
not.
change it by doing what we're doing. That's
Yeah,
what we're gonna
exactly.
do. We're gonna change the world.
Yeah,
guys.
you are.
We're gonna
Yeah.
do it.
One conversation at a time.
I think
Yeah.
the fantasy that we were all sold early on of like the expected recognition of uniqueness is
Mm.
like a level of
Mm.
vanity that we will forever
Ooh.
be striving to. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my god.
Woo! That was powerful indeed. That is a quote
Yes.
to end it all.
Yes.
I cannot add to
Absolutely.
that. That was powerful.
Okay. Okay.
You need
will-
to do your intro and
Oh yes.
Oh wait.
uh,
Yeah,
What
say
your-
like,
your
hey, it's
greeting.
Lorna, and
Okay.
then we need you to say what else?
Come speculate with us.
What
Come
would you?
speculate with
Okay.
us.
Hi, this is Lorna. Come speculate with us.
Okay, and then we all say, what do we? You're not even on the mic, babe. Okay. Okay, we all say catch you later, speculators.
Let's do it.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Catch you
Catch you
later,
later, speculators.
speculators.
It's always so off. I love it.
I love it.
Bye.
Bye.
Later, guys.
Guys.
Bye.